Hello, hello, this is Kristen, and you're listening to Season 1 of Not Even Wine with Dinner. We have a lot of great stories this season to welcome you in as we talk about drinking, attempting sobriety, mental health, and aging, all wrapped up in a soulful but sarcastic package. For more info about this movement, head on over to www.notevenwinewithdinner.com. Now let's uncork the bottle and get started. Hello, hello, my friends. This is Kristen, and you are listening to Not Even Wine with Dinner. This is the gratitude edition. It is a happy Thanksgiving week if you are located in the United States of America. And even though I am physically not there, I will still be celebrating Thanksgiving this week with my husband. I am looking forward to having a nice meal, playing some games, and then decorating the house for Christmas. And obviously expressing gratitude for all of the good things in my life. So before we get into all that, let me just ask, why are we decorating for Christmas in October? Can somebody explain that? Is it just strictly commercialism and retail dollars that are pushing this? I mean, I know that there's people who just love Christmas. I just love Christmas. I am a Christian. I believe in the birth of Christ, and I love Christmas. But I don't get starting it in October. I don't know why. Just don't think that's when it's supposed to happen. I am not a Scrooge. I am not a bah humbug or a crab ass or anything like that. I just don't understand why we're decorating in October. October is my favorite month. My birthday's in October. My anniversary is in October. Halloween was always one of my favorites. And I love October. Love it, love it, love it. My favorite month. It is supposed to be gold, burgundy, and pumpkin color. It is not supposed to be red and green. Maybe that's just the creative in me that's frustrated with that. Christmas has a color. October has a color. Okay, so I just got off on a rant. I just want to know why we're decorating in October. If you have an answer, please let me know. Also, Black Friday. Why are we celebrating Black Friday in countries that don't celebrate Thanksgiving? Riddle me that. We have lots of Black Friday signs going on down here in Guatemala. What I recall as a child, let's give you a memory for a moment. And a child for me was 70s, 80s. I'm Generation X. We didn't decorate until the day after Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving was the women were cooking for the week. Then the family would come together. Women would clean up. The men would go watch sports and football and whatnot for days on end. And the women would do things like games and cards and sitting around smoking their Kent 100s and chit-chatting and gossiping. Okay, so now that it sounds like the 50s, that's what I remember. That's what my childhood was like watching Thanksgiving. I think it was the late 80s or 90s when the shopping really started to come into play. Like women started getting a bit stronger and more like, I am woman, hear me roar, and I'm every woman. So they all started saying, we're not going to sit here and just serve you food while you eat football. So they started wanting to go out and go shop. And when that happened, I think the retailers just took advantage of it. I get it. I know that's what happened. I recall it. I just don't understand why it's happening in other countries. Or do they know why? Why are you celebrating Black Friday? What is your reasoning? That's another rant that I just went on. Okay, so today, let's talk about gratitude. Let me be honest. This podcast is very organic. What I've tried to do is have some cliff notes. And what I did for this one, really, it was going to end up almost mimicking the webinar that I am presenting tomorrow on my school page. I felt really bumbly when I did it. I literally recorded a 30-minute podcast talking about gratitude, and it was very bullet dotted and workshop-like. And that's not what this podcast is meant to be. And it was not until I did it, finished it, was uploading it, and then went and took a walk. And I started thinking about what I was grateful for in my life. And this is not all about me, but I think that by expressing things that I feel like I'm grateful for and things I've seen, maybe that will spark somebody else. Some of this is external gratitude and some is internal. And as I ramble on about this, you'll know what I'm talking about, because there is two different kinds. There's external gratitude. I'm grateful for the people, the places, and the things around me. And then internal gratitude is I am grateful for my knowledge, my wisdom, my movement, my breath. We're going to talk a little bit about both. So what I'm doing is recording this and likely going to scrap the other one because it just didn't feel natural. So in the spirit of Thanksgiving, let me talk a little bit about gratitude. I'm not telling you my life story, but this will be part of it, and hopefully will spark something in you to think about some of the basic things that we should be grateful and thankful for. Let me start by saying that I am extremely grateful to be born into the family I was born into. And I know not everybody can say that. I genuinely know that just from far too many situations with friends and family. I am very blessed, very lucky, whatever you want to call it, that I was born to the parents I was born to, that I had the sister that I had, and was just born in the situation that I'm in. That is not to be bullshit or egotistical or sound like an ass. It's just the truth. I was very blessed that I was born where I was born. I was born very middle class, call it waspy, white bread, whatever you want to call it white privilege, if you will. I had no control over that. When we think about the family and people say, there's white privilege and there's racism and there's this, that, and the other. Well, there absolutely is, but none of us have any control over the situation we're born into, which I think maybe getting a little deep here, something we should consider when we start thinking about racism and how other people are and the way they look and they act and all of their characteristics and attributes. They can't help all of them. Some of them we can. We can help how we treat people, but we can't help if we're black, white, yellow, or brown. That's not in our control. With all that said, I was born in Connecticut. I'm very lucky to have been blessed with the family I was blessed with. When I was born, I had crossed eyes. It's called pediatric strabismus. My parents took it upon themselves without insurance somehow. I know it was a struggle, but they had surgery done on my eyes. They did everything they could to fix the issue. So I had 4 muscular operations before the age of 11. They didn't have to do that. I know that. And, when I've mentioned that to them, they kind of look at me like, well, what else were we going to do? We weren't going to leave you looking like, we knew it was a problem for you. And then when I found out that kind of thing was not an insurance thing, they just, I don't know, go to the bank or try to take out a loan to take care of this for me. I feel I don't want to keep using the word blessed and lucky, but I can see they did the best that they could to make sure that my eyes were straight and that I could see properly. And it was a lot. I remember going to countless eye doctor appointments, which was also how I found out that I was ADHD, although I don't think that was the diagnosis back then. I was hyper. That's what they said. Hyper child, hyperactivity. And they medicated me for that too. That's a whole other story about being a Ritalin child. But I very much appreciate and have gratitude for them taking care of me and my health and things along those lines. I feel very grateful for my health. I've been through quite a bit. As I just said, I've been through 4 operations on my eyes. I had 1 on my jaw. Ooh, goodness. Ovary, appendix, colon, hysterectomy. I think at last count, my hysterectomy was in a couple years ago. So that was, I think, number 8. And it's crazy because I think about having surgery as being something that has been so normal in my life. It's weird. It's not something I would like. I thought, I was done when I had a couple of my last ones, but apparently not. So I'm just grateful for the body I have. I've been able to do the things that needed to be done on my body and that I have the movement levels I do. I think movement is something that we take for granted. We have one body and we choose whether to abuse it or to take care of it. Now, I'm not referring to things that are, or the way our bodies are from heredity. That's different. Or maybe we've had an accident. That's different too. I am just talking about if we're born as a healthy child, we make it to adulthood with everything intact, that we make the decision. We start to have the discernment and the wisdom given to us. Call it God-given, if you will. We have the discernment and can make the choices of what to do to our body or what not to do with it. Obviously, that's different with different intelligence levels, education levels. I am generalizing. Pretty much everything I'm saying here is a generalized statement. So please take it at that. I'm not expressing that with this podcast because I'm grateful for growing up as a waspy girl that everybody should be able to identify with that. That's not the case at all. So when we choose to use or abuse or take care of the body, that is when we start getting into personal responsibility. That's a thing to be grateful for, is that we have this body that allows us to move, to breathe, to run, to stretch, to walk, to talk, to sit, to stand. We do make decisions that are either good or bad for us. Now, some of that comes from issues that we have going on mentally. We have the discernment whether or not to do something good for us or do something bad for us. So I'm very grateful for the body that I'm in, for the ability to move, and learned, this was not taught to me. I did not take care of my body when I was young. People look at me and they go, oh, you're tall and thin. That must be nice. I've had my struggles. I've been much heavier. Right now, I'm having a weight loss issue. I'm waiting for some doctors to look at my blood results, trying to figure out why I've just abruptly dropped some weight. So being naturally thin is not always what people think it's cracked up to be. There's issues on this end as well. But as a Gen X child, I ate like shit, especially from starting high school and up. Not saying that we didn't sit down and eat as a family of 4, but we also had all of those foods in the house that my generation started eating. I had Pop-Tarts and Fruit Loops and Oreos and Shasta and the Good Humor Man, Fritos, Doritos. Luckily, we did not grow up with a lot of fast food, so we did eat at the table. You didn't even go out to eat unless it was a special occasion. I don't know, a death, a birth, or a birthday, I guess, would be the best opportunity. If you had a family get together for a holiday, it was at someone's house. Somebody was cooking you a roast dinner. You weren't going out to eat. That was not normal for us. And then as I reached my 20s, I carried that to a different level. It was Kraft macaroni and cheese, Chef Boyardee, cans of processed foods, lean cuisine, Marie calendars, Swansons, you name it. If it was in the microwave or if it came in a package, I ate it. Hamburger Helper, Velveeta shells and cheese. Who else can I promote here? Those are not paid endorsements, by the way. I went through different phases of soda as well. I have gone through Shasta, Coke, Diet Pepsi, Sprite, Dr. Pepper. And since I've been in Guatemala, Fanta. I do not drink soda as much as I did 30 years ago, but I do occasionally because it's made with real cane sugar. So that is something I know is not good for me, and I have the ability. So I have gratitude. Back to my original topic here. I have the gratitude for myself to know that I have the discernment in decision making. I know that I can make good and bad choices. Sometimes I have one Shasta a week, one Fanta a week. Sometimes I have none, and there was a phase there where I was having one every night. I have discerned to make that choice different. All right, so moving forward. Another thing, I'm going to go back into my childhood. This is kind of a deeper subject. My sister came out of the closet when she was 16 years old in 76. And I was 8 years old. I have written about this on my medium.com page, and I will link that story below if you would like to read the whole story. My parents told me that my sister was gay when I was 8. The way that went down was a Sunday morning. I got up, went into my parents' bedroom to jump in their bed and get the funnies out of the Sunday paper and the mini page, if you know what that is. And then my mom says to me, we need to tell you something about Robin. Now, I knew that Robin had moved out, and there was a whole massive crazy scene around that is in the story. But I didn't know anything other than she was moving out. And so my mom says, well, do you know what gay means? And I said, yeah. I said, it's when a boy loves a boy and a girl loves a girl. And her and my dad kind of looked at each other and they were like, okay, all right. That's exactly what that is. And then they said, we want you to know that Robin's gay. And I didn't really have a reaction. I was 8 years old. I love my sister. My sister was my best friend. We did everything together. I was her little mascot. I was like a little sidekick with her and her teen friends. And so I said, okay. And they said, well, do you have anything to say about it? Do you have any questions? What do you think about it? And I responded, if Robin's gay, then maybe I'm gay. And then we were in family therapy. So my point of that story and sharing that with you is that over the years, I had people tell me that they could not believe my parents would tell me that information when I was such a young child, that I couldn't have been able to process what that meant. No, it was not a common subject in society in Connecticut. or anything else that I was aware of at 8 years old. Did I know that I had heard the words before? Yes, I did. But I didn't have any kind of a judgment about them because I was not surrounded by anything judgmental. My sister moved in with her girlfriend in her girlfriend's apartment. She finished high school. Now, let me just throw in the note here is I am sure if this was current day, this would either not have happened, or if it had, it would have ended up being like some weird statutory rape case because Robin was young. My sister was 16. Her partner was in her early 20s, and it just would have not happened. But I think what happened because of the time frame, my parents didn't do anything about it because they didn't want the attention drawn to her and didn't want the exposure and it to be a scandal. And after they told me, shortly thereafter, I started having sleepovers at Robin and her partner's house. And it was not a big deal. That's that whole story. Again, you can read about it, and I will probably do a whole episode on that because it was a really important part of my life. It was a pivotal situation that happened in my life as well as my sister's. I'm very grateful that I was given the opportunity to be exposed to that at a young age. And from that day on, I had no judgment of homosexuals. I didn't care. I knew that my sister was in a relationship. Her girlfriend was a girlfriend instead of a boyfriend. They didn't do anything in front of me. They just were like friends that lived together as far as I was concerned. That is a huge moment of gratitude that I wanted to share today. I'm going to move a little further forward. I'm grateful for my ability to learn. I never finished college. I had a very party-filled, weed-filled, drink-filled freshman year at Texas Tech University, and I came home with a 1.65 accumulative average. Yay, me. My parents were not so proud. I was put on scholastic suspension. I was not allowed back for the year. And at that point, my parents were like, all right, well, you can't stay here just hanging out. So get a job or you need to find a place to live. So I got a job because I followed instructions. I got a job in Albertson's grocery store at age 17. Was I 17 or 18? Something like that. And I had good I had good work ethic and I had a good career with them. But my parents pushed me to do things in a certain order. You're not going to school, you need to get a job. You don't get a job, you're not going to live here. And I knew the way that they had raised me, they were not overly strict. Maybe sometimes they should have been, but they weren't strict, that there were rules and you just followed the rules. So by the time I reached that age, it was like, get a job. Okay, I got a job. Now pay your bills. Okay, I'll pay my bills. So I didn't necessarily pay my bills correctly or pay them all on time or in full. And I learned the hard way about money. But I'm just grateful that I figured out, I think also through my ADHD, that I wasn't good in every class and it's okay. I didn't need geometry. Not saying if I had it and I could understand it, that I wouldn't use it in my life, but I did not understand it, did not grasp it, could not get it, didn't work that way in my brain. So it was not going to benefit me in any way, shape, or form. But I learned that if I took classes that I enjoyed, I learned things that I wanted to learn about, I could go much further in life. And I think that comes down to just the work ethic that was instilled in me as a child. So I'm very grateful for that as well. Enough about my immediate family. I am very grateful to my husband, who is one of the hardest workers that I know. I've been very lucky. How do I even say this? My previous relationship was with a very responsible and upstanding person, as is the one with my husband. So again, I feel like I'm bragging. That doesn't mean that I haven't dated some assholes, because I have. I've dated a couple of assholes, and I've dated some people that were not very nice and not very kind. I have somebody who can fix things and will clean and cook. Now, my husband is like super hard worker, and he's a very good provider and brings lots to the party. And I'm very grateful for that, as well as his, what's the word I'm looking for? Enthusiasm coming into the mission field. I would have never lived in Guatemala were it not for my husband. He felt like he was called to do this job after doing some week-long mission trips. And I will not forget where we were, when it was, the day he sat down and we were just chatting and he said, I feel like I'm supposed to be in Guatemala. To which I replied, we're going to go back probably in the spring. And he said, no, I feel like I'm supposed to be there. Like I'm supposed to be there all the time. And I'm like looking at him like, are you freaking kidding me? And he's like, no, I just feel like that's where I'm supposed to be. Like we should be there full time. And it was at a point when I said, well, you can go because I don't really have any interest in moving to Guatemala. But fast forward, I don't want to use the word coerced, but we talked about it at length. And I am not afraid of change. I'm not afraid to move and try new things. That is something that's come with age. That is not something that I always did, but I gave it a try. While it has had its ups and downs, severe highs and severe lows, it has by far been one of the coolest, most rewarding, eye-opening, humbling experiences of my life. That doesn't mean everybody's meant to do this, but I encourage you, if you are able to travel and to travel internationally. Now, that doesn't mean you have to go on the other side of the planet, depending on where you're located. If you're in Europe, then you probably already do, because Europeans go all over because it's like states in the United States. And yes, there are different parts of the United States that are very culturally different, but it is not the same as leaving a first world country and going to another country to see how people live and what they survive with and not have. It's very shocking. There are some really shocking things. I have now seen so much of it that it is a normal everyday life, that I can look out my front door and see tin huts that don't have running water or plumbing. And there are a bunch of kids running around with no shoes. That's part of one of the things we do, is we try to help these families that are in these situations. That's what we do with our water program. And we're actually giving out a bunch of shoes for Christmas. The more that I'm immersed in this environment, the more I've realized by watching world news and exposing myself to other things that more of the world is like this than it is in first world countries, which is quite startling. And when you see what it's like for somebody to live without running water, not just running water, access to drinking water, clean drinking water, access to plumbing, not having to shit in a hole in the ground and put a curtain in front of it. Sorry to be so crass, but that's pretty much what it is. And we see that. We see a lot of these outhouses or not. I think it's those things we take for granted. I'm pretty sure that most people listening, with the exception of what went on in your crazy countries in COVID, doesn't appreciate toilet paper. Taking toilet paper for granted is something that we all tend to do. Toilet paper, plumbing, water. I am thrilled to bits that I have access to all of those things, as small as they might seem. I think I'm going to wrap it up with that. I could go on and on and on. The list is so long. Family, my friends, you listeners, people who have encouraged me to keep going with Not Even Wine with Dinner. You guys are the reason that I'm here. And what I hope now after today is to make these podcasts just more personal stories about myself and some of the guests that I'm going to bring in is really going to be about having one-on-one, just heartfelt conversations with people. Not saying I don't want to interview professionals, but I think this is what we need. We need some real talk with our friends. We need to be talking about our problems and not masking them. Obviously, this podcast and Not Even Wine is all about sobriety, but it's also about life and self-esteem and confidence and aging and family and dysfunction and all the garbage we deal with every single day. So thank you guys for listening. Thank you for supporting this mission and this effort. Thank you for following me and sharing this podcast with everyone you know. And I hope that if you are celebrating Thanksgiving, that you can take a moment and just share one thing of internal gratitude as well as external gratitude with the people that you love and care about. And then maybe do that to somebody you don't really know. Just say, you know what, I'm really in a grateful mood today. I'm thankful to be alive. Is there something I can do for you? And maybe put out an act of service. You guys have a happy Thanksgiving and enjoy your Black Friday, and I will catch you guys next time. Stay safe, stay sober. Just a quick note of the legal jargon. I am not a medical or psychiatric professional, nor am I a recovery or addiction specialist. This podcast is for information use only, and I am simply sharing my own experiences with sobriety, drinking, mental health, and wellness. I'm not here to diagnose or to treat. So if you're struggling and you feel like you are in immediate need, please contact a medical professional or call 911. Thank you guys again. Stay safe, stay sober.